The Baudelaire Song Project is looking at all the song settings ever of the famous French poet Charles Baudelaire, 19th century French poet who lived in Paris at a really, really exciting time. He was really interested in the arts as well as literature. And although we know that lots of songs have been written to his poetry, we don't know how many or what type of songs they are. So this project, for the first time, is bringing all of them together. Classical music settings, pop song settings, and pop song settings of all types. Whether it's rap or rock, indie or electronica, we're going to be looking at it. And it's a really exciting thing to bring together for the first time. So in the 1980s in Britain, Baudelaire became quite a bit of a big thing. In 1987 as well, The Cure released a song on their album Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me called How Beautiful You Are. And it's actually a setting of Baudelaire's prose poem, The Eyes of the Poor. It's not referenced, but it's pretty much word for word a translation into English of that poem. And the poem captures the poet and his mistress or lover sitting in a brand new cafe, all glistening, and a poor family walking by and staring in at the window and looking at them. And it's kind of capturing this moment as to who has the right to be where. And the mistress complains that the poor people are kind of staring at her, whereas Baudelaire is embarrassed that she's complaining. So it's this interesting kind of moment in time in 1980s Britain that Baudelaire kind of became the thing. I first got to know Baudelaire as a teenager, but didn't really fall in love with him until about my first year at university. Baudelaire's famous collection of poetry, Les Fleurs du Mal, which is The Flowers of Evil, was one of the set texts I had to study. And I didn't really like it first time round. I was asked to write an essay on it, produce the essay. Lecturer said it was pretty rubbish, write it again. I ended up actually having to write the essay 3 times. And by the time I'd done that, I'd really got to know Baudelaire, and I suddenly realised what an amazing poet he is. And he's amazing because he captures everything. He captures the beautiful and the ugly. He captures the poor and the rich. He deals with heaven and hell, all these opposites, but instead of leaving them as opposites, he kind of brings them together in this kind of whirlwind conflict that sort of really works. It's quite intoxicating. And that idea of it being intoxicating is influenced by his own ideas as well. He writes poems about getting drunk. He's written essays about taking drugs. And although that sort of is not the primary driver for me, there's this idea that actually you can get into that kind of drunk and drugged state through poetry, and it's amazing. So when we have all of this information about every song that is available of Baudelaire's poems, we're going to be able to look at what composers and songwriters do to his poems. So at the moment, we have a pretty good idea that Baudelaire's poetry is thought of as quite highbrow. It's very proper French verse. He uses all the traditional structures of French verse. And so people often think it's perfect for classical music. But in fact, all these pop song settings and French chanson settings from the 1950s and 60s that we're finding do all sorts of things to his poetry. They change words, they repeat sections, they leave out sections. And instead of thinking that that's a bad thing, we're looking for what it is that produces, the effects of it. And so we're going to have the poem all marked up digitally, and we're going to have the songs all marked up digitally, and we're going to be able to compare not just the poem and the music, but lots of different types of music on the same poetic text. So we're going to find out for the first time and sort of have proof, not just for Baudelaire, but for a lot of other poetry and music combinations. We're going to have the proof, hopefully, that it isn't just about being accurate or inaccurate, how correct a certain choice of music or a certain choice of meter or rhythm is, but the real variety and the kind of the scale of what you can do. So what I'm hoping to find is not just a right or a wrong answer, but a whole spectrum, and sort of we can find average kind of length of song, for example, or we can find typical things that composers and songwriters do, like how many times do they repeat things, and that's going to give us a really interesting data set. The other thing is that all sorts of people will be able to access this data. It's not just for academics, although it will be useful to lots of academics across the globe. if you are a singer, for example, you might think, oh, I like Baudelaire, I'd like to be able to sing him in a concert I'm putting on. You'll be able to find a really suitable song setting. You'll be able to find it because we're also tagging by theme as well as the actual kind of text and the actual musical technical stuff. And also, if you're a songwriter and looking for a Baudelaire text, you'll be able to see who else has set it, listen to those examples, perhaps produce something completely different, or realise for some poems there are hardly any settings at all and you can be the first person to do it. I've been able to bring together a fantastic team of researchers from the University of Sheffield and the University of Toulouse in France. And there are 3 of us main researchers on the project, but we're also working with a number of partners, including the digital humanities team here at the University of Sheffield, who are doing all of the technical data model for us. But also we're working with 3 main partners, including the Sheffield Sing Project, working with school children and songwriting, Oxford Leader, who are a big classical song festival run each year, all the big name singers and accompanists, and Association Toulouse Mélodie, which is the Toulouse equivalent of Oxford Leader, if you like. The whole point of this is that we know that there are some poems by Baudelaire which have been set to music but which have never been recorded, so people can't access them. So with these collaborators, we're going to be able to record those songs. I'm a classically trained singer myself, so is my co-investigator Mylène Dubiot from the University of Toulouse, as indeed is our research associate. So we'll be able to do some of the singing ourselves, working with other professional singers, but also professional accompanists as well. So those songs which have never been heard are going to be heard for the first time thanks to this project. What's also great is that members of the public can collaborate on this project too. It's not just about the small team of researchers. Already we've been generating some interest on our project Twitter feed at Baudelaire Project, which is bringing loads of traffic, and people in France, in America have already been telling us songs that they've created themselves on Baudelaire's poems. So we've got lots of links to SoundCloud tracks, including some rap tracks that have just been produced in France really recently, and other people from Italy who have produced some kind of chanson style tracks. It's really, really fantastic because we wouldn't have access to that information otherwise.